Could it be? Me, your man, Louie Tee, here with a Louie Tee Network exclusive. Louie's lurking in the comments. I thought it was only right and fitting for me to do this based off of a show we did last night. And I was looking through the comment section, and there were a lot of great comments from you all. Thought provoking comments, ones that forced me to kind of think, ask myself those questions. Some of them I just wanted to respond to because they were debatable, right? There were things that we could have a healthy debate about. I knew, look, when I do things like this, I know you're not going to always agree. That's the point of these. It's supposed to be thought provoking. It's supposed to start a conversation, whether you agree or not. The conversation is what we're looking for. And so I did want to get to the comment section and talk about some of the things you guys left in the comment section of last night's offensive free agency preview video. So with that said, let's go ahead, dive in to that show and the comment section from that show last night. And before I do that, let me do something very quickly. Let me knock this out real fast before I forget, because I am very, very forgetful when it comes to things like this if I don't do it in the moment when I'm thinking about it. So let's see if I can track it down. There it is. And then, yep. All right. Now we off and we running. Let's go. So let's get to the comment section and we'll answer as many questions or respond to as many comments as we can. It's not always going to be me being able to get to every single comment. So we'll skim through these, get through them as quickly as possible. I got about maybe 30, 40 minutes max. So we'll get to as many of these as we possibly can. So with that said, let's dive in. So JP had a comment. And you know what? Let's start from I guess we'll go from newest, and then we'll start at the bottom. That means we'll start with the ones that came in first, and then work our way to the the ones that just came in not too long ago. All right. So Carmen Mark says he likes the idea of Tyler Algier and Bill in our running back room. I could see that being a possibility. Again, Falcons may not bring back Tyler Algier. And I feel like Chris Rodriguez and Tyler Algier are duplicates of each other. Algier is an upgrade over Rodriguez, but Rodriguez, as I mentioned last night, is a restricted free agent, and thus he's going to cost you a lot less. You don't have to, fight over him. Algier will have a market. He is a really good NFL running back that has a specific skill set that teams covet. So, Algier's not going to get a boatload of money, but it may be more than what they have allotted to spend at the running back position for a guy that they're going to platoon that won't be your number one back. Tyler Algier, isn't a number one back in this league. He's a really good back, a number two option. He's not a number one. And we're not sure if Bill's a number one. But if one of the two were supposed to be, it'd be Bill, not Algier. And so you're not looking to spend a boatload of money, if that makes sense, where you could just get Chris Rodriguez on the cheap. and have him fill that void, right? So, um, see. Okay, this one is really long. Whew. See if we can sort through this. I think we should bring back Heineke to compete with Mario. Okay, we can stop right there. Um, we don't need to bring in Taylor Heineke to do anything here. Nothing. Not even hold the water cooler. Mass Collector also writes, I still think Jake Bobo should be looked at as wide receiver 4, bare minimum, wide receiver 2 as an upside, not Jake Bobo. What are we doing here? And Jake Bobo, wide receiver 4, okay, cool. But no, like the Commanders, I think are like we shouldn't be having a Jake Bobo discussion. Let's just stop right there. Um, he's a special teams guy, a guy way down the depth chart. He caught a touchdown pass in the divisional round, and he hadn't caught a pass since like week 5 before that or something like that. Like, what are we talking about with Jake Bobo? Like, no, absolutely not. Um, let's see. Um, Mass Collector. Diami outplayed Brian Thomas Jr. That's the long short of it. I'm fine with him or Thornton or Pierce or Naylor or whoever was as the deep threat. I care more about getting a big body X receiver. Clearly, um, if you're talking about Jake Bobo, which is asinine, Jake Bobo isn't going to fill any void here in Washington. Um, he said Jaden never looked comfortable throwing to receivers who aren't wide open thus far. Getting a guy with some height will make it clear for him since he struggles throwing 50-50 passes for whatever reason. Let's stop right there because I don't necessarily agree with that. Every quarterback looks way more comfortable throwing to open receivers. That said, um, a lot of Zach Ertz's catches, especially the ones in the red zone, weren't to open receivers. He had to thread the needle. Um, again, that's what the red zone is all about. Jaden's been super efficient in the red zone. A few mistakes, right? The Cleveland game, he threw an interception in his rookie season. But for the most part, you have to be at your best in the red zone. He had a dart, the back of the end zone to Deebo Samuel against the Vikings, and he dropped it. Um, these are, needle pinpoint accurate type throws in tight windows in the red zone. Um, I don't think he's done a tremendous job of throwing 50-50 balls. I do agree with you there. And I do think he does prefer throwing to, bigger receivers. However, I also just think he prefers throwing to the right side of the field, which Terry never lines up. It's easy, it's in his line of sight, and Terry's usually getting the better, coverage, cover corner. So Noah Brown usually had the favorable matchup, so he would just go there. Ultimately, um, Diami outplaying Brian Thomas Jr. He had a rough year, did Brian Thomas Jr., but in no way, shape, or form did Diami outplay him. Again, Mass Collector, you're kind of all over the place right now. He says, sure, bring in Wandale. I think there are better options who can be a deep threat. And that's not what you would be looking for Wandale to be. I've talked about him being more of a slot guy that can win underneath. He says Terry is the one, and then a big target in Bobo. Hey, Lord have mercy. You love you some Jake Bobo. You guys must be related in some way, shape, or form. Um, let's see. Again, and he talks about Bobo improving our special teams. I'm over going out and signing guys that can improve our special teams. We got enough of those on the roster already. We don't need more of those. Um, Dulcich dropped everything in Denver, hard pass. Well, he didn't drop everything in Miami. So That's what I care about. I don't care about what he did 2, 3 years ago. I care about what he did last year. Romeo Dubs dropped everything 2, 3 years ago. You don't want him now because he caught everything last year in Green Bay. So again, we can't talk about what happened 2, 3 years ago. We're talking about present day and what's happening now. And while Dulcich struggled in Denver, he was really good in Miami last year. I'm more concerned with his health issues and him being able to play full, 17 game slate. He hasn't done that and hasn't even come remotely close to doing that in his career. The most games he's ever played in is 10. That's the real issue, not him dropping the football, because he caught it really well last season. It's the same issue I have with Romeo Dubs with the concussions, right? It's not about him catching the football anymore. It's about, can he just be healthy and available? Something that has plagued this team in terms of the receiver position in particular. Can guys just stay healthy? That's what we need. Let's see. MF Quotes says 3 skilled players I want in free agency: Dubs, Likely, and Rashad White. I would like to sign and crash out like Ayuk too. I feel like we are missing that energy. Look, every team doesn't need a crash out. That is not true. And there's different levels to crash outs. First prerequisite is your crash out actually has to love football, which we don't know if Brandon Ayuk has any real desire to play football anymore. Let's start there. Does he even want to play football? Forget about being a crash out. He's not a crash out on the field. It's a crash out off of it. That's exactly what we don't want. Give me the crash out on the field, the George Pickens guy that might snap, or the direct opposite. I don't want a guy that's going to quit on the field, which we've seen Pickens do that, where he's like shown lack of interest on the field when he's not getting his way or whatever. But he's liable to go off for 172 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. I'm more likely to deal with that than the guy that I don't even know if he truly wants to play football or not. So bring back Taylor Heineke for quarterback 3. You guys have to stop this. You guys have to stop this. Seriously. Let's see. This is more of a conversation on the uniforms. Let's do it. That's what we're here for, right? MF Quote says, I'm about to go on a rant about the uniforms. Honestly, I hate that the front office is catering to all the old people in the fan base. My generation, Gen Z, literally hasn't seen one good thing happen in those jerseys. I promise you can't name one. First game I watched was in 2011, and it's been a shit product year after year. Just let the old shit go. We aren't the Redskins anymore. The Commanders' uniforms are better than any uniform we've had, and any uniform we had when we were the Redskins. But now at least all the old dementia-ridden people can also remember what team they were watching. Now, yeah, I hate this team with a passion sometimes. Okay. All right, so that's kind of the point that Rio has made about the championship era uniforms, is that you're catering to an older audience that saw this team winning those uniforms, but the newer generation of fans can't relate, and they don't care about what happened in those uniforms some 30 plus years ago. And I get that. There's a balance that I feel like you have to try and strike. And I don't think they've attempted to strike that balance at all. I do think you're right in the sense that they've tried to cater to the older fans, the louder fans. Those are the fans that are much louder. But what you got to also take into consideration is Josh Harris owns this team. And when you own the team, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. And his nostalgia, his warm and fuzzies from this organization stem from when they wore those championship era uniforms. So this is more about him trying to get this team back to what they once were. And what they once was one of the best run organizations in football. And when they were that is what they looked like. So in his mind, the two are synonymous with one another. And so he's going to try his damnedest to get them back to those glory years. And part of that mystique of those glory years was what they look like. I know you're not trying to hear the shit. I'm just trying to give you some rationale from, Josh Harris's point of view as to why he would be trying to basically go back to the look of the Redskins. He's towing that line and getting up as close as he can to that line without actually crossing it, because he can't bring back the logo, can't bring back the name, but this is a consolation here, right? This is the best I can do, right? I hear you. Anthony, I laughed at this last night when I saw this. Anthony says, if the team is thinking like you at wide receiver, we're going to be trash again at the position. So I'll say this. The receiver position is one that in free agency, I think you guys believe that there's this abundance of talent at receiver in free agency. There's not. All right. And the thing about free agency is either you've got to be forward thinking, you've got to be ahead of the curve if you want to spend the proper amount of money, or you're going to overpay and overspend for something that isn't going to give you the return on investment you're looking for. The only guy right now that I look at in free agency that's going to get a pretty sizable payday at the receiver position that I think is warranted right now is Alec Pierce. Someone's going to overpay for Alec Pierce more likely than not, but at least you know what you're getting. He's young, he's explosive, he's dynamic, and he has a trait that every team covets and could use, and that's the ability to stretch the field vertically, and he's doing it better than anybody else in the league right now. So even if you feel like it's a slight overpay, at least you know you're getting what you're paying for. Everyone else here, you can't really be sure what you're going to get from them. Juwan Jennings is almost 30, and he's going to want north of $20 million. That's ridiculous for a guy that can't stretch the field vertically. Yes, he does have a specific set of skills, which is using his body to be a shield, to create separation from him and the defender, using strong hands to come down with the football, a reliable target on third downs, a tough guy. He'll block, he'll do all the dirty work. But you probably can find a guy that makes a lot less to do similar things, right? And then you look at the rest of this list, and there's just not enough names here that move the needle. You've got to be forward thinking. And I brought up Jalen Nailor. And I know, again, a lot of you don't know what Jalen Nailor is or isn't doing. You don't know his game. You're not familiar with his game. So, of course, it's going to sound like I'm talking crazy. He's the third option in Minnesota. That doesn't mean he can't be the second option somewhere else. And again, I'm not advocating for that necessarily. I told you I think that's what they're going to do, not necessarily what I would do, but I'm not opposed to bringing in Jalen Nailor. I've already told you. I'm not opposed to having him here. I'm not opposed to them bringing back Treylon Burks. I still think you should draft a receiver if you were to do that, but that might be, again, you have 6 picks. You have 6 selections in the draft. So you have to choose wisely. I wouldn't be upset of an offense that featured Terry McLaurin, Jalen Nailor, Treylon Burks, Tyquan Thornton, all the other receivers that we have. So Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane. If you were to draft a guy, great. If you did all of that in free agency, if you signed 3 guys, which that would be what the case would be if you brought back Treylon Burks, signed Jalen Nailor, and Tyquan Thornton, you're probably not drafting a receiver, more likely than not this year. Maybe you'll do it next year, which is fine. Next year's a better draft anyway. And that I would be fine with that. Obviously, Terry would have to stay healthy again, right? He'd have to stay healthy. No options, no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But I would be cool with that. Again, there aren't a ton of options available at the receiver position. And there may be some more that shake free, but I think some of you think this is Madden or something. You can just go out here and spend inordinate amounts of money everywhere and that there's this infinite supply that never runs out. That's not true. We haven't even gotten to the defensive side of football where you probably need more help than you do on the offensive side. So again, I don't think free agency, I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't think free agency is the place to spend big money at the receiver position unless you're paying one of your own guys. That's, to me, that's not the position you want to go out and splurge on. Not for me, at least, not receiver. I'd much rather go out, find me a receiver that's ascending like a Jalen Naylor and see if I can't hit a home run on him and pay a amount that even if it doesn't work out, at least you didn't just go out and spend this crazy amount on a guy only to be disappointed. Look at it as a Terrell Pryor type of transaction. You swing big on a guy, you hope it works. If it doesn't, you didn't invest a whole hell of a lot. You move on. Mamba Fats writes, bro, you think they are similar? Travis is a better all-around back than Bill. You can put him out as a wide receiver. So when I talked about them being similar, I really wasn't necessarily talking about the skill set as much as I was the stature, how they're built, right? They're very similar in how they're built, 5'10", 5'11", 215, that sort of thing, right? Speed wise, both of them run like a 4.4, 5, 4.46, 4.47, something like that. So that's what I was more so talking about. Like, if you're talking about what they can provide, Travis Etienne is supposed to be a much better pass catcher than Bill. We don't know if Bill can or can't catch. He didn't get the opportunity in college, and we didn't really give him the opportunity last year in his rookie season. But when we did throw it to him, he did catch it for the most part. But again, I was more so talking about stature, speed, that sort of thing, more so than the actual skill set. And just talking about, you want a different caliber of back. You want different variety. The only duplicate that I think that you should be able to keep on deck is whomever your lead back is. You want another guy that does similar things. You're not going to find a direct, or an exact duplicate. But if you can find a guy that is similar in skill set to what that guy is, if he goes down, you've got another guy that can step in, right? That's and theoretically, I would be cool with them bringing in Travis Etienne, having Bill. That would mean Bill would be taking a back seat, basically, and then you bring in back a Chris Rodriguez or a Tyler Algier. That would be a dynamic running back room, right? But again, and they kind of had that in Jacksonville, where they drafted Bashal Tutin, and they had Travis Etienne, and they kind of platooned those two. And then they had another back that was like a bigger, more physical back that, took some of the carries here and there. That would be similar to what we would be able to reconstruct here. If you brought in a Travis Etienne to go with Bill, and then obviously the bigger back, which would be Chris Rodriguez or a Tyler Algier type. Brian writes, oh, thank you, Brian. I really appreciate that. Nano Dog says, I think they will spend more at running back than we anticipate. AP is from the same front office that traded for McCaffrey, and Lance Newmark is from Detroit, where they took Gibbs. And Baugh, who is most than likely going to run something. Oh, okay. David Blau. And Blau, who is most likely going to run something similar to Ben Johnson's scheme, which we've seen how important Gibbs was to that scheme. So your logic is excellent here. Here's the disconnect. You have to be getting one of those types of backs. McCaffrey is a borderline Hall of Famer, and if he stays healthy for the remainder of his career, he's a Hall of Fame running back. And Jahmyr Gibbs is on a Hall of Fame pace in his very short NFL career. He's off to a Hall of Fame start. Are you getting that in free agency? Is Kenneth Walker III a Hall of Fame caliber running back? No. Is Breece Hall? No. So again, I think when it applies, maybe they go and take the running back in the draft, Jeremiah Love. That would be the argument. If you were making this argument, it wouldn't be for McCaffrey or Gibbs, or excuse me, it wouldn't be for any of the guys in free agency. It would be for the guy that you think has Hall of Fame talent, and that would be Jeremiah Love. If, in fact, that is how they feel about him. That would be more of the discussion than, to me, going out and signing one of these guys in free agency, because we've seen them play. We know that they're good backs, but they're not Jahmyr Gibbs or Christian McCaffrey, because Breece Hall isn't a dynamic pass catcher. Neither is Kenneth Walker III out of the backfield. You want one of these types of guys, he has to also be a dynamic pass catcher in addition to a home run threat and a dynamic runner. The guy that I just described is sitting in the draft and will be available at number 7. So you kind of made more of an argument for that than signing one of these running backs in free agency. Kevin the PRF says, super chat to JP, from AP's perspective is my sentiment on running backs exactly, and wide receivers, and using a top 15 pick on either. If you're picking top 15, you got way more important position groups that need talent. So he was basically referring to the super chat that JP talked about, where he asked, why wouldn't Adam Peters spend big money at the running back position in free agency? And to Kevin the PRF's point, if you're picking in the top 15, I would shrink that to the top 10. You know, top 15, you could have had some injuries, but you're actually a pretty solid team. Top 10, top 5, top 7, you're usually pretty bad. Like, you earn that pick. You're not a good football team, which we aren't right now. And so your point is spot on. We have more important needs, but those needs could be taken care of by the time you get to the draft. Who knows? We'll see. Jansen Elaine says, definitely need a veteran behind Jaden. Hopefully Mariota stays. I'd be okay with Driscoll and then a younger guy like Hooker. The priority at quarterback has to be Mariota. You have to find a way to get Marcus Mariota to come back here. Mamba Fats writes, so question, how do you or we know that those players that you named that you would be disappointed over if they don't sign, how do you know they want to play here? So if they don't sign those players because of that, and you know, or we know that, how can you be mad at them if it doesn't? So that's a great question. I can still be disappointed and upset. And you know why I would be upset? Because this is supposed to be different. We should have turned a corner now to where this is a place where players want to play. They want to be a part of what we're building. They want to play with Jaden Daniels. I'll be upset and disappointed if we can't get a tight end, a young tight end looking for an opportunity. I will be upset if he decides, I don't want to play in Washington. Well, why doesn't he want to play here? Why doesn't he want to be a part of this? If money isn't the issue, if we can give them a deal that's comparable to what they'll get on the market and they feel comfortable with the amount of money we're offering, why wouldn't you want to come play with Jaden Daniels? This isn't the old Redskins / football team / Commanders that had Daniel Snyder running the show, and it was a shit show. It was a mess. We had no leadership, no direction, no quarterback. It's different now. We should be able to attract young, talented free agents. Every time we look up, somebody's like, man, Jaden Daniels. I'd love to play with Jaden. All the young boys from college feel that way. I get it that these are grown men that are in free agency that have been in the league. They're not impressed or wowed by Jaden Daniels, etc. Not like the young boys coming from college are. But at the end of the day, we should be able to attract. Not everybody, this place isn't for everyone. That's okay. I'm okay with that. I saw DeAndre Hopkins say, "Nah, I'm good. I don't want to go to Washington." We don't want him here, right? We don't want DeAndre Hopkins here. We don't want him. He's old. That's what we're trying to go away from. But he didn't want to be here, and that's okay. And there are going to be other guys that don't want to be here. I've already talked about that. A guy like Tyreek Hill, a guy like Mike Evans, they don't want to come to Washington. They're trying to win a Super Bowl. I get it. But we don't want them either. At least I don't. I can't speak for you. But a guy like Isaiah Likely should want to come to Washington. And again, he might not want to come to Washington. He might want to get as far away from the DMV as possible after spending the last 3-4 years in Baltimore. He might say, I want to get the hell out of here. Who knows? But what I'm saying is we shouldn't have an issue attracting young talent here. And if we can't get it here, that's still a problem. And I can be disappointed and upset about that. Once upon a time, I couldn't be because I get it. We're a shit show. We should be able to attract talent here now. Lex writes, love the show, would go after Etienne. He's a proven 1,000-yard rusher and a threat in the pass game. Then would draft Katron Allen or Jam Miller or Le'Veon Moss at running back. We'll see if they decide. Like, they drafted a running back last year. I find it hard to believe that they're going to draft another running back this year. Again, unless it's at the top of the draft at 7 with a home run threat and a, next level talent in Jeremiah Love. I don't know if they're going to double down on a late round back 2 years in a row. They could. Anything's possible. Again, I told you, we really don't know what to expect from Adam Peters. This year is going to be huge in us being able to identify who he is, what he is, and how he goes about, operating. All right. We'll have a better sense of that this year. Jansen Elaine says, if they bring in Algier plus White / Gainwell, then that's the way to go. Keep C-Rod for cheap as running back 4. Yeah, I could see a situation like that. I think C-Rod continues to be running back 4. Like, I think they feel how I feel about C-Rod, right? Which is, I like C-Rod. I don't love him, but I'm not willing to let him go, right? That's kind of how they've been operating with C-Rod. They keep him at arm's length, but never too far out of reach in case they need him. But I always feel like you can do better than C-Rod, and I think they feel that way too. But again, we'll see what they decide to do. Derek B says, I just want AP to prioritize the better player over the better deal when it comes to starters. I don't mind cheaper deals, but they have to be for younger players with upside or something to prove. Old and cheap can no longer be an option. And I think that's exactly what you're going to see this year is he's going like that hasn't been the issue. When he's identified a guy that he thinks can play, he's given them a multi-year contract, i.e., Frankie Louvu, Dorrance Armstrong, Tyler Biadasz, etc. Right? Like if Javon Kinlaw, if he felt like the guy could start and be a really productive player here, he's given him a multi-year contract. The issue has been, like you said, old and cheap 1-year guys. I think you're going to see them go away from that model. And I do think they're going to try to, predict some of these guys as players that can, be starters for them. It'll be on the cheaper side of going out and getting an Alec Pierce or even a Jawan Jennings potentially. But like I said, a guy like Speedy Naylor, but he's a younger player with upside and something to prove, and that's what you're looking for in free agency. That's what you should be angling for. If you go out and you try to get the guy that's produced at a high level in free agency, you're going to end up spending way too much money, right? You want the guy that either has slightly underachieved, hasn't gotten the opportunity, but you've seen the talent and you think, oh, he could be a perfect fit here. And he's ascending and he's hitting his stride right now. He's going into the prime of his career. That's the guy you want to spend money on, not the guy that's done it for 6-7 years in the league. And now he's kind of going on the downturn of his career, and you're overspending for a guy that isn't going to produce for the amount of money that you're paying him, right? Jansen writes, Algier is a perfect complement to Bill. He doesn't fumble either. Signing someone like Hall would essentially put Bill on the bench, and I don't think they want to do that. Algier, 3 years, $15 million. I could see that. That's a really good deal for Algier. It's good money. Rashad White takes less to come be with Jaden, 2 years, $7 million. So it would be Algier, Bill, 1 and 2, right? RB3 pass catcher, gives you a ton of depth at running back for a team that wants to run the ball more. This would be great. I would love if they did this. And for the money that you described, which would be awesome, it would definitely be an ideal situation, because I think Bill can be a starter in this league. I know some people don't. I do. Adding Algier into that mix gives you that hammer and a nail. And then White could also get in there, and they could go with that whole hot hand thing, because you could get White having a good game and just keep feeding him. And again, he can catch it out of the backfield. He can pass protect, which is what he did in Tampa. So yeah, that would be great. And again, I see that as a more realistic option than anybody that is out here championing them going after a Breece Hall if he's available, or a Kenneth Walker III, or even to a lesser degree a Travis Etienne. I think you're more likely to see something like this. Don't rule out a Kenneth Gainwell to replace a Rashad White in this instance, in this scenario, or even take Algier out, insert White, and then add in Kenneth Gainwell. I could see something along those lines more so than I could them going and spending all of this money that you just reallocated to 2 different guys on one guy. I think that's the way that they're going to look at this. So at wide receiver, Jansen writes, Traylon Burks, 2 years, $10 million. Jalen Naylor / Thornton, 3 years, $30 million. De'Ami Brown, 1 year, $3.5 million. Terry plus Naylor and Thornton on the outside. Burks in the slot. De'Ami, Luke in depth, lane for depth. I could see this being a scenario right here. I don't think they're going to do all 4 of these guys, though. I think you pick 3 out of these 4, whether it's Burks, Naylor, Thornton, Burks, Naylor, Brown, Burks, Thornton, Brown. I think Naylor is the key to all of this, because he's the guy that actually feels like he could go and play out wide as your number 2 in this scenario. Again, Burks could also do it, I think, but Naylor has proven to me that he can go out there and play and be a consistent option as a second option at the receiver position. And so he would be the key to all of this, Burks and Naylor. And then, whether it's Thornton or Brown, you would have to pick one of the 2, is how I see it playing out. But again, we will see. Jansen says, I think a lot of the Green Bay free agents will go to Miami. Yeah, because of all of their guys going there, right? The new general manager is from Green Bay, the new head coach is from Green Bay. So that makes a ton of sense. I think you could be onto something there. So Jansen asks, this was really interesting. He says, I don't know the exact cap ramifications, but would you take on Tua's salary if Miami attached a 2nd and a 4th with him? Then you could restructure, lower his cap by a lot, then would have around $70 million to bring in whatever free agents, but you add draft picks to take on his salary. No, you don't take on Tua Tagovailoa's salary in any capacity. Even if you could restructure it, it's bad money. It's money that you don't need to have on your cap. The picks aren't worth it. And again, this, from all reports, I can't say, I haven't watched these players yet, but this is supposed to be a very weak draft class. So you adding more picks in this particular draft just to take on some bad salary, that's like an NBA move. You rarely see that in the NFL, especially knowing that we have to do Jaden's deal next year. there's no reason to take on bad cap to add draft picks. There's no upside to Tua Tagovailoa being here in Washington either. So, yeah, that's a great concept in theory. If this were the NBA, you'd absolutely do it. It's not. It's the NFL. Jansen also writes, if Hollywood can't produce in Kansas City, he isn't going to be good in Washington. No thanks. That's kind of how I feel, right? It's kind of how I feel. Jansen says Naylor was wide receiver 3 in Minnesota with bad quarterback play. All I'm saying is it wasn't an ideal situation. He was number 3 behind 2 really good receivers, and he still put up almost 500 yards receiving, like you said, with really bad quarterback play to boot. I just think people are sleeping on Jalen Naylor. Again, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, especially if you haven't watched him. You're just going to go look at his numbers and say, hell no. I'm telling you right now, I think he can be here and he could do it. And again, the reason that I'm adamant he's on their radar is because of our defensive coordinator, Durante Jones, who has been with Jalen Naylor basically his entire career. And he's seen the guy every day at practice, in the building. He knows his work ethic. He's seen where Speedy Naylor has come from as an undrafted guy, working his way up the ranks to where he is now. If Speedy Naylor is what I think he is, and Durante Jones can vouch for that, I think it just makes it that much more plausible that he ends up here in a place like Washington. For the same reason that you think a lot of those Green Bay players make a mass exodus to Miami, right? Relationships. Ideally, if they keep 6 receivers on the 53, this is from Jensen again, Terry, Naylor / Thornton, Burks, Diami, Luke, Lane, with Jacoby Jones, Ja'Cory Brooks, Nick Nash on the practice squad, all young guys except for Terry. Again, I think it's going to look something like this when it's all said and done. I think it's going to look something like this. Again, don't count out Nick Nash. Do not count out Nick Nash. Jansen also writes, AAV isn't the cap hit, obviously. Kinlaw signed for $15 million and had a cap hit of $5 million. Terry signed for $32.5 per year with an $18 million cap hit. I believe AP will spend AAV on 3-4 guys between $18 to $28 million, 4 or 5 guys between $8 to $15 million. The rest will be 6 or less. Build out the depth. Yep, that sounds about right. I think that sums up what I think he's going to do. I think that's what it's going to look like. Does this constitute fireworks? Maybe for some. I don't think it's fireworks, but I think it's a very aggressive and active free agency, which is what I believe is going to take place here. Commanders, Justin Clemens writes, teams I think Mariota can get offered a starting job: Dolphins, Titans, Jets, Cards, and Browns. I don't think he gets a starting job at any of these locales. Dolphins, they're going to go get Malik Willis. To Jensen's point, all of those Green Bay guys just relocated to South Beach, so they're going to go get the quarterback there. Titans have Ward, so why would they want Mariota to start there? They already did the Mariota song and dance. They don't want to do it again. Jets, I think they're more inclined to go after a Kirk Cousins, a Kyler Murray via trade, something like that. Could Mariota start there? Maybe, but again, they just did the Tyrod Taylor and Justin Fields thing. I don't think they want to go even older than that. Cardinals, no, I don't think that Marcus starts there. And the Browns, they got a mess, but they're not adding Marcus to that mess. Thomas Cheek says, I'm tired of all you podcast people thinking the same way. Let's get a skill position player from some other team, like they're going to make a difference on this team. We have enough skilled players. What we don't have is good offensive and defensive linemen, but you guys blame every position, then the O-line and D-line. So you think the offensive line was the problem last year? We haven't gotten to the defensive line yet. We haven't gotten to the defensive side of the football. This was an offensive show. So I'm confused. We got enough good skill position players. What team did you watch last year, Thomas? Where are these good position players that we already have that you saw with this team last year? Please identify them. I'd love to know who you think these great position players that we have. We have enough, you said. We have enough. Where are they? And where were they last year when we needed them? I'll wait. John Perez, my guy JP, writes, I didn't make this super chat, but would you be open to spending on defense in free agency and then maybe drafting offense at 7? I think you're going to spread it out amongst both sides of the ball. I don't think it's one or the other, right? I don't think they go into this process saying, hey, this is what we want to do in order to free us up to draft a running back at 7 or a wide receiver at 7. That's not how this works. You go in identifying guys that you just think can help your football team, that are the best fits for your team. And then you try and go and get them to sign on the dotted line. And then once the dust settles and the smoke clears, then you turn your attention to the draft and you figure out what holes you have, but more importantly, what's the best player available? We suck. We're at 7. We need the best player available for what we're trying to do. That's how you go about this. I don't think you say, you know what? Let's load up on defensive players in free agency so we can draft an offensive player. I don't think that's the way to go. I think you just go out and you sign as many good football players that you think can help this team moving forward. And then when you're done, you assess your situation and you figure out what's the best usage of the 7th pick in the draft. That could be trading back and picking up more picks for all we know. So, we'll see. John Perez writes, I'm starting to become more open to Jeremiah Love at 7th overall. Can you imagine a home run threat like that in the backfield with Jaden and Bill? It would be the best rushing attack in the league. I'm all for it. You already know how I feel about Jeremiah Love. But again, that's a luxury pick that we don't currently have. But that it goes back to a question that I want to ask you guys. And I think I'm going to ask you this on another show. As a matter of fact, let me write it down so I don't forget. I think I know the answer to this already. And I think I already know what you guys are going to say, but I'm still going to ask you anyway. I'm just writing it down so I don't forget because, like I said, I will forget. I think I know what you guys are going to say, but sometimes you guys surprise me. Because, sometimes, adding to a strength or taking, a situation that might not be bad or might be good and making it great may be better than taking an awful situation and trying to turn it into above average, right? Authentic writes, the football nerd in me loves this sort of content. This is one of your better videos in a minute, Louie. Looking forward to the next 2 months for our Commanders. As am I. I'm looking forward to the next 3 months, really. The rest of this month, all of March, all of April, and then, reacting to everything in the early stages of May. And then that's when things start to really settle in, right? I appreciate that, though. Looking forward to it as well. Chacordian, Algier, and likely the rest should all be defensive. But that kind of speaks to, let me see if there's any more comments that have come in. Nope. So that kind of speaks to what I said earlier. This is not a great wide receiver free agency crop. So anybody shitting on a Jalen Naylor, I get it if you don't necessarily love him, but this isn't a great group of receivers. Again, I'm all for Romeo Dubs if you could guarantee me health, and you can't do that with any player. But again, I'm always leery of guys wearing Guardian caps. Doesn't mean I wouldn't take them because my favorite player in the league right now wears a Guardian cap. And Jalen Petrie. So again, just because you have a Guardian cap doesn't mean you can't hoop. I take Romeo Dubs in a heartbeat. Take him in a heartbeat. So Likely is the guy that I think I want the most right now. Again, I don't know if he's going to end up here or not, but on the offensive side, I will say that. I think he's the guy I want the most on the offensive side because I just think Jaden needs a tight end, a pass catching tight end. We know how much he loves throwing to the tight end. I think if you got Terry, you've got a dynamic pass catching tight end and a really good run game. I think you can suffice. Anything extra added to that, and I think you have the makings of a really dynamic offense. But if you've got a healthy Terry, a field stretching tight end, or a guy that can be dynamic at the tight end position, and a solid run game, then you got all the elements you need of really making this a dangerous offense. I think the tight end is the thing that's going to unlock this offense. I really would like to see them go get a guy like Isaiah Likely. So anyway, I digress. All right. Let's get to the comment section. If there isn't anything in the comment section, we'll get out of here. So let's first get to a word from our sponsor. Come back on the other side and see what you guys have to say. Oops. Sleeper. Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat on games in real time with other users, get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips, play in fantasy leagues, and win real money on pick contests. So enjoy sports the way they were meant to, together. Download the #1 sports app today. Predict the hottest football stats like passing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and much more to cash in on your daily fantasy football skills. Use promo code LTN and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Sleep. Shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring this stream. If you aren't a user of the Sleeper app, you're missing out. It's been such a blast, and they've added this new element to their app where you can make picks using the teams. So it's their team picks, and it's a pretty dope addition. Pick a winner with the teams. I'll have a graphic for you coming soon, but there's still the player option. Now you can do teams as well. And again, they're offering a ton of boosts. 100% on the NBA. NBA back tonight in all of its full splendor after the All-Star break. So they've got 100% there. They've got a 50% just with 3 picks or more. So they're giving you opportunities. I've been taking advantage. I'm not going to hold you. Hit a little something last night in the college basketball space. So they were offering up 100% on college basketball last night. Took advantage of that. So, hey, there's opportunities out here if you're interested, and Sleeper has you covered. Link is in the description of this video. Use my promo code LTN to get you 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. With that said, don't have much going on in the comment section, so we'll just get to this one comment and then we'll get out of here. Mr. HTTR, thank you for being a member for 37 months. Salute. Who writes, not advocating for it, but I think BA ends up here. I don't really know what happens with Brandon Ayuk. Just to be honest with you, he's such an enigma, right? Like, I still don't know if he wants to play football or not. None of us do. I think it's hilarious how the lengths people are trying to go to show that he's going to end up here. Lionel Willingham, posted some erroneous bullshit the other day talking about sources say. He had a picture of Laramie Tunzel, looks like he's on a vacation, and he's talking to a guy that's back's turned to the camera, and Lionel Willingham, sources say that's Brandon Ayuk. And then he cites the muscle atrophy. Like, this is the dumbest, craziest, stupidest shit ever. Muscle atrophy in his right leg. Okay, guy, get the hell out of here. I mean, I laughed till my stomach started to ache. Muscle atrophy. Get out of here, man. Get your crazy ass out of here. The lengths to which people are going to try to put Brandon Ayuk here is crazy. Will he end up here? I don't know. He may, very well may end up. But until he gets released, which is going to happen, there's really nothing to talk about. He has to be released from the 49ers first. Once that happens and he's a free agent, then we can start having a real conversation about whether or not he ends up here. And again, does he even want to play football? He could squash all of this. He could put all of this to rest by saying that, yeah, I want to play football. Just want it out of San Francisco or something to that. He has said nothing. He has said nothing. I don't know, man. I don't know. But we'll see, right? We'll see. It's going to be a really intriguing 2.5 months. Buckle up. It's going to be a hell of a ride for this fan base. Because I think Adam Peters is going to... You've seen how aggressive they've been just in the coaching staff. That, to me, is a precursor of things to come. So, anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie Tee, here on Louie's Lurking in the Comments. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys again in the near future. Hopefully some day soon, whether tomorrow, Saturday, whatever, I'll have the defensive side of the football. We'll look at free agency and really dive into that. But until then, I'm your man Louie Tee signing off. And remember, if you're commenting, I'm lurking. And I'm always lurking in the comments. I think we're going to be live, Commanders Kings, tonight. Somewhere in that 8 o'clock hour. So you should see us tonight. Again, I don't like to make promises I can't keep, but you should see us tonight. But in any event, you guys, be easy. Take care. Peace.